morning. Today is Friday the 16th. Welcome you to City Hall. Welcome you to this committee. Mr. Clerk, we do have a quorum. I'm joined today by my colleague Marquise Harris Dawson. Let's quickly run through the in fact, you know what? Why don't I go straight to public speaking? I want to bring up Mr. Previn. Mr. Previn, we'll give you 2 minutes, and then we'll bring up Mr. Spindler, and he'll get 2 minutes as well. A minute on the items and a minute for general public comment, however you want to work it. So come on. Mr. Previn, the floor is yours.
Morning, sir. And we obviously all miss Mr. Weezar. I just want to say...
Stay on topic.
Yeah, no, I am. Sir, I'm right on topic. I've said one sentence. I just want to, first of all, thank you for addressing the ongoing cannabis concerns. You got a lot of people down here again. The item where I wanted to just address is safe parking. You know, and I think we've all agreed that it's a decent idea. And here, I was looking into the Blumenfield notion that there's some problem with insurance. That's been the reason why they haven't been able to get these safe parking. Now, we do have one in my area. It's a secret location, which is a problem. And the way you can get a place to park is you have to go through the coordinated entry system. So it's a now, when I did a little inquiry as to how many are we getting going, I was a little disappointed at the total number of spaces, because it's something like 3. And you go, wait a minute, is it 3? No, they said, no, it's actually 10. And you still go, but don't we have tens of thousands of people potentially looking? So it does worry me, and I don't know if the Blumenfield motion from the folks out in the valley about the insurance is a real, or it's just an excuse to sort of be supportive when in fact they don't really want people parking nearby. I don't know. Regarding the changing the calendar year, you guys, what you do is now you set out the vacations of city work, but it's not vacations of city work, it's your schedule, your recess schedule. So I wanted to thank you for that. You've got a robust list that looks very, very similar to this year's list. I would just ask that in the category of civic participation, transparency, and the meeting process, I know you've made a motion to rescind the idea of sending the pernicious liens and the vacations of property up to committees where nobody can and gets confused, and it doesn't really land as a fair public hearing. So I wanted to say thank you for trying to streamline that. I don't know if all those CD14 vacations of city property on that one day up in public safety.
Thank you, Mr. Previn. Mr. Spindler? You get 2 minutes. Your 2 minutes are up, Mr. Previn. Mr. Spindler? Mr. Spindler?
First minute on the items, the other talk about Jose Weezer. Oh, okay, thank you, sir. So today, we have some kind of bullshit implementing a violation of the Second Amendment, and as you know, number 10 is unconstitutional as a violation of the right to bear arms. You're forcing people that have children to acknowledge that they have a handgun in their fucking house. I mean, come on, people. Just because you're stupid enough to knock up a bitch and marry her and have a dumb retard kid, you're supposed to tell the government you have a fucking handgun. But if you're in a public school versus a private school, this does not apply to private schools. Like, for example, Salesian High School. No on 10. But let's talk about, where's Jose Weezar? He's on the agenda.
No, on the topic, Mr.
City
Spindler.
Attorney, he's on the
Now,
agenda.
let's give him this is, go
right,
on, Mr.
general
Spindler.
public comment about your target, Jose Weezar, and he's on the agenda. I understood that you wrote a letter, and I'm very surprised. I didn't know you were literate, but apparently you're able to write a letter telling Holly Walcott, the very pretty lady, that you're taking Jose Weezer off of all the committees, including this one. Read the city charter, Herb. He's entitled as right to serve on a minimum of 3 committee meetings. You have to vote to take him off the council to do that. You have violated Jose Weezer's civil rights. I like Jose Weezer because he gets good pussy at government payments. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Spindler. Now, Mr. Spindler, your time is up. Sit down, or you can be removed from this. Sit down. You're disturbing this committee meeting. Okay, why don't we run through the items? I'll make sure that everybody else gets the opportunity to speak, but go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Richard Williams, Office of the City Clerk. Following are scheduled for today. Item number 1. Would you like me to run through all the items?
Yeah, let's run through them because I want to deal with about 9 of them quickly. So.
Okay. Item number 1 is City Attorney Report and Ordinances.
In fact, you know what? Let's go through 3 through 12. Just go through 3 through 12.
Okay. Item number 3 is Resolution Rodriguez Huizar and CLA Report relative to the city's position on legislation which would add persons experiencing homelessness to the list of those protected by the state's hate crime law. Item number 4 is CLA Reports and Resolutions relative to establishing the city's position regarding legislation to adopt a state historic rehabilitation tax credit and to amend the state government code to allow homeless shelters on private land during declared emergencies. Item number 5 is CLA Report and Resolutions relative to recommendations for the city's 2019-20 federal and state legislative programs as submitted by the Los Angeles World Airports. Item number 6 is CLA Report and Resolutions relative to recommendations for the city's 2019-20 state legislative program as submitted by the Los Angeles Fire Department. Item number 7 is CLA Report and Resolutions relative to recommendations for the city's 2019-20 state and federal legislative programs as submitted by the Los Angeles Housing and Community Investment Department. Item number 8 is CLA Report and Resolution in response to Resolution Blumenfeld-Krikorian relative to establishing the city's position regarding legislation or administrative action that would require the California Department of Motor Vehicles to provide supplemental services to safe parking programs. Item number 9 is Resolution Martinez-Cedillo and CLA Report relative to including in the city's 2017-18 federal legislative program Department of Homeland Security's proposed rule entitled Inadmissibility on Public Charge Grounds. Item number 10 is Resolution Krikorian-Martinez-Harris-Dawson relative to a request to the Los Angeles Unified School District to implement a program that notifies parents and guardians about the safe storage of handguns ordinance and requests the parents to sign an accompanying statement if they do own a gun, saying that they understand the importance of safely storing it. Item number 11 is CLA Report relative to authorizing the Public Works Bureau of Engineering to seek a grant in the amount of $125,000 from the California Department of Finance for the United States Census Local Update of Census Addresses Program. Item number 12 is CLA Report relative to the 2019 Council recess schedule.
Thank you so very much. So, Mr. Harris-Dawson, if you don't have any questions, why don't we dispense of items 3 through 10. On those items, we'll adopt the CLA report and resolutions. On item 11, we will adopt the CLA report. And on item 12, we'll adopt the CLA report as amended, where it relates to the winter recess through Friday, January 11th. So without objection, those items will be deemed approved. So that should take us to, Mr. Clerk, items 1 and 2. But why don't I bring up the department staff?
Pardon me, Mr. Chair. Would you like me to read items 1 and 2 into the
Go
record
ahead,
before
please.
Item number 1 is City Attorney Report and Ordinances relative to amending the Los Angeles Municipal and Administrative Codes pertaining to the regulation of commercial cannabis activity and amending the rules and regulations for cannabis procedures, and Department of Cannabis regulation reports relative to supplemental cannabis business fees, Tier 3 social equity applicant in lieu fee, and social equity deferral.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, sir.
Go ahead.
And item number 2 is joint reports from the Chief Legislative Analyst and City Administrative Officer relative to enforcement against illegal commercial cannabis activity in the City of Los Angeles, and joint CLA reports on proposed budget policy for the Department of Cannabis Regulation.
Thank you. Okay, who wants to, do we want to go, Ms. Packard, straight to you or the city attorney, or how do we want to do this?
So good morning, Council President Wesson and Councilmember Harris-Dawson. We can begin with a report out from the department. The Department of Cannabis Regulation is about 11 months into implementing the city's local licensing, specifically priority processing. So I want to give a quick update on where we are in that process and some of the technical amendments that we have here before us today. For Phase 1 applicants, we have about 169 businesses that have been temporarily approved to engage in commercial cannabis activity for either adult use or medical purposes. For our Phase 2 businesses, we received close to 600 applications for Phase 2 priority processing, and part of what we've been working on very closely with stakeholders in the room today and state agencies is to provide a process to provide non-operational local authorization to our Phase 2 applicants so that they may apply for their state temporary license before the end of the year, because this process will end at the end of this calendar year, and businesses would much like to be able to qualify for the provisional license, which is something that they, in order to get the provisional license, they would need a state temporary license prior to. So we have a number of technical amendments before us. One of the technical amendments today is the ability for existing medical marijuana dispensaries to go through a relocation process. We have discussed with stakeholders the need to work very closely with council to make sure that there are bona fide business reasons why existing businesses are going through this process, and that it also doesn't implicate and impact the social equity program. There are a number of reports that are before you today, and if the council would like to discuss any of those reports in detail, we are here to discuss those reports, and I'll pass it over to my colleague Alex Friedman with City Attorney if he wants to provide some updates as well.
Good morning.
Thank you. Alex Friedman, Deputy City Attorney. We have prepared and transmitted 4 draft ordinances for your consideration to amend the city's cannabis procedures. The bulk of it is a large amendment to the LAM's Article 4 of Chapter 10 of Los Angeles Municipal Code to clarify the procedures for licensing, for noticing, to provide additional clarity on the definition of the social equity program, the ownership requirements, to establish a fee that you can pay in lieu of providing property to a Tier 1 or Tier 1 social equity applicant. And then there's a number of other technical amendments. I'm happy to answer any questions about that if the committee has them.
Okay. Did you want to make it? Okay, so I think what we'll do now is we'll start with the comment from the public. So if I could have Alejandra Mataquin, Andrew Dillard, Ben Kingston, Donnie Anderson, Joshua Pomerantz, Ramir Massour. Please, if I call you, come on up. Don't wait.
Hi, good morning, council members. On behalf of First 5 LA, we are here to support the City Council's efforts to create a dedicated funding source to support children and youth programs in the City of Los Angeles. Over the years, children and youth organizations have asked the city to make funding for children and youth programs a priority. Recently, we advocated for a cannabis reinvestment trust fund that would set aside funding for child and youth programs. Now that the trust fund has been recommended for further exploration and possibly receive dedicated funding via a general budget allocation, we want to underscore the urgency of looking at options that will prioritize children and youth programs. And as the council explores an alternative budget policy, we would like to emphasize that the council look at making these funds sizable, secure, and sustainable. The City of Los Angeles is doing a tremendous job at service delivery, such as summer programs, parks and recreation, and through LAPD, amongst others. However, the City of LA is also becoming a more and more expensive city to live in. Am I out?
You're out.
Okay.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, members of the council, folks present. My name is Andrew Dillard, and I'd like to discuss the proposed moratorium on the transfer of EMMD licenses. It is our belief, and I believe others in this room, that the retroactive application of this proposed ordinance would cause irreparable injury to lawful owners of these businesses, their business partners, and also investors. As co-founder and chief business officer of a venture-based capital firm and a new entrant into the cannabis space, we believe that providing financial backing, business expertise, and consultation, that we could create value for owners, investors, communities, and local businesses in these areas, while also helping to remove some of the taint many still view our industry under. However, what we take strong issue with is that the irreparable injury proposed by the ordinance, retroactive relocation, would cause existing EMD owners, investors, and parties.
Thank you. Next speaker. Okay, before we start his time, so Mr. Anderson, you've signed up on 2 items, so you'll
Yes.
get 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. One of the things, I want to say good morning anyway. One of the things that we have a problem with is still existing retail shops that's still being open. When is we're going to have closure on them, or when will it really start to ramp up? We just want to find out when that starts. On another hand, we want to make sure we reinvest in our community with the cannabis fund. But let's get the cannabis money in the bank first before we start divvying up the pot. Let's get shops open, let's get people businesses open and licensed, and then we'll come to a conclusion where we put enough money up to make sure it makes sense before it's all gone, and then we're still looking like, where did the money go? That's an issue. We want to fix that and make sure that everyone gets a fair share, but if everyone don't participate, they don't get a share. Or the communities that say we don't want it, they don't participate in the funds, period. We need to get with the people that's been devastated in the communities and give something more than just rap music and basketball to our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Distinguished council persons, my name is Ben Kingston, and I also urge the council to vote against the proposed ordinance to impose a retroactive moratorium on relocating existing EMMDs as of October 19. The recently proposed ordinance is inconsistent with the statements and the conduct of the DCR up until about a week ago. As of on or about October 15th, the recommendation by the DCR to the City Council was to impose a moratorium beginning in January of 2019. Consistently, throughout the past few months, the DCR has also readily accepted any relocation submissions, and has in no time indicated that anything would be coming down the pipeline that would prevent us from those relocations being approved. For these reasons, we think that EMDs have detrimentally relied upon the conduct of the DCR.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning. My name is Josh Pomerantz, and I'm EMMD owner and operator.
Let's hold his time for a minute. Josh, you get 2 minutes as well. You signed up for several items, so you have 2.
Okay, thank you. I recently sent in a request to the DCR for an address change. However, it was brought to my attention that my request may not be approved pending language on a new draft ordinance, which could possibly set back the cutoff date for moving retroactively. This would have a very adverse effect on us since we are ending our old lease at our original location because Building and Safety recently stated we have some potential ADA issues. Therefore, it is basically mandatory we have to move. We are currently in the process of signing a new lease at a location we have recently secured after a long search. If the moving date was set back retroactively past the date we put in our request with the DCR, we would be in major hardship. If the retroactive date is indeed a possibility, I would urge the council to reconsider and come up with a more amicable solution for both EMMDs and social equity applicants. Perhaps give EMMDs advance notice and a time frame to act accordingly, while at the same time creating a channel for social equity applications to apply for the locations they have been holding on to for lengthy periods of time. Or perhaps a registry on the city's cannabis website that would tell EMMDs wishing to move which spots have already been claimed by the social equity applicants so they don't move too close to them. I know firsthand it's very difficult to secure a properly zoned location in the city of LA. I only hope that in the midst of this licensing process, the good players don't get left behind. Thank you for your time.
Yes, please come forward, identify yourself.
Ramin Mansour.
2 minutes as well.
Good morning, Council. We are an EMMD that is in the process of changing our premises location. It only came to our attention from a third-party email newsletter that there has been an effort in attempting to stop all change of location requests. We have never received any formal notice, and nothing has been published online on the DCR website regarding this matter. Our current location has an expiring lease of February 2019. Additionally, the premises is on a second floor, which creates accessibility issues for disabled patients. According to our contractor and architect, it is technically not feasible to include an elevator. We just secured a new ground floor ADA-friendly location and submitted a change of location request this past Tuesday night following the DCR protocol on the website. We urge the council to update the language in this draft and require the DCR post a minimum 45-day prospective notice on their website and send out an email to all 169 current EMMDs. Making the deadline retroactive would cause us and others significant financial hardship. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Grant, 2 minutes as well.
Good morning, Council. My name is Virgil Grant. I'm here to address a couple of issues. I'm for the programs for the children, but we have to continue to dig the well before we can continue to start drawing water from it. So let's, as Mr. Anderson said, let's get the program going first. Let's get everything in order. Let's get everybody licensed before we start implementing things in place to take money from the cannabis industry. Also, the moratorium. The moratorium, I'm for it as long as it does not affect the impact zones or a social equity applicant. If someone wants to move in an area that is not an impact zone or a social equity applicant doesn't have a lockdown location already, then I'm for it. If not, it's just not going to work. There are members here that spoke prior to me that it would affect them, and they do need to move as long as it's not affecting a social equity applicant. Relocation, if they paid attention to the state after the first of the year, the state is really not going to allow too much relocation, not unless you start a full application process all over again. So that's going to hold up their movement anyway on a state level. So it would be smart that they move before the first of the year anyway. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Identify yourself.
Hello, my name is Chris. I'm a small business owner who's just trying to get into cannabis business. I learned by attending MJ Business Conference in Vegas and other seminars and meetups here in Los Angeles. I want to be part of this industry, help this industry to grow bigger, and eventually be able to educate the people in my community as well. I did my studies, and right now I secured an investment to purchase a building, and I'm in the process of relocating a license. As a small business owner who's just getting into cannabis, I'm taking a huge risk and spent a lot of money, and my group is heavily relying on me as it is my job to secure the license and the relocation. And I hear that relocation will be stopped completely, even though once already submitted, requested to the DCR. And as a small business owner, we need more information. DCR is doing great, but things change so rapidly, one thing to another at the blink of an eye without any grace period.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now looking for Alexa Steinberg, Daniel Jimenez, John Edwards. Yeah, come on. I didn't see your name, but come on. Okay, go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Alexa Steinberg, and I'm with Mansory Law, and I'm speaking on behalf of my EMMD clients in particular today. While I understand the proposed amendments appear intended to prohibit an EMMD's relocation for expansion purposes, this amendment unequivocally and unapologetically causes irreparable damage to those EMMDs who cannot viably continue to operate in their current location due to circumstances out of their control. This will devastatingly affect EMMDs in positions that leave them no choice but to shut down or move. Furthermore, the city has failed to show any finding that relocation of an EMMD poses a current or immediate threat to public health, safety, or welfare of the city to support their inclusion of an urgency clause in this new amendment. Thank you.
Thank you for coming down. Yes, sir.
Hello, good morning. My name is Daniel Jimenez. On behalf of Inner City Struggle, I'm here to support the efforts of City Council to create a funding source to support programs for children and youth in the city of Los Angeles. As a nonprofit organization that works with youth and families, we have seen the high need of our communities have for more resources and programs that will benefit children and youth overlay. Unfortunately, many children do not have access to programs due to high cost of childcare and early education opportunities and lack of spaces. In a report that was put out by the Advancement Project, it was highlighted that out of the 51% children that qualify for subsidized early care and education programs, only 6% were served. Simply, there's not enough spots. We often hear families that are put a long waiting list in order to receive these services, especially in low-income communities of color. This is why we're here today, to support the City Council's efforts to bridge the gap in services for the youngest sectors of the population. Working together with institutions, agencies, departments, and nonprofit organizations, we can make a positive impact in the community. We want to highlight that distribution of funds via general budget allocations is a good opportunity to give resources to programs such as parenting programs, more child care slots, and programs for early childhood education. Thank you.
Sarah, come on. Get in line. Yes.
Good morning. My name is John Edwards. I'm here to discuss the moving of retail dispensaries. At the moment, we are seeing very little knowledge of application for moving our retail dispensaries. I would ask you to look for more time. We need more time. We are seeking to move because we have limited disposal of the property we're focusing on, and we would like to make sure that we have enough time to move within the next month or so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Sarah, you come on up. I'm looking for Min So Shim, Michelle Mobaga, and I know I butchered that. Patrick McFarland, Robert Winkler. Tomir, you're somewhere in here. We'll have you get in line. Yes, Sarah.
Good morning, sir. I am Sarah Armstrong, Director of Industry Affairs for Americans for Safe Access and Policy Chair for the Southern California Coalition. I'm here today because over the years I've been doing this work, I've talked to many EMMDs who are forced to move through no fault of their own. And we're not moving to obtain economic advantages, but rather to cure rapacious landlords and other problems. I hope that the city will be able to work out a way for these EMMDs to continue to move. I believe the best way to do that would be to establish a little registry for the Tier 1, Tier 2s. Once they were on that registry, they would have the privilege of a sensitive use area akin to the EMMDs, and the EMDs would be respectful of that and not attempt to move into their space. I hope this can be done. I think it's legally defensible because between 2007, when you established the registry, and this year when you established licensing, all of those on that original list were privileged to have a sensitive use radius. I see no reason why social equity should not have the same. Thank you.
Yes, please come forward and identify yourself.
Good morning, distinguished council. My name is Robert Winkler. I'm an attorney that represents Genius Fund, and we submitted a letter a couple days ago in reference to the proposed moratorium on the relocation of existing cannabis businesses. I urge the council to read that letter and consider it, and I don't wish to rehash all the points in that letter. What I'd like to talk to you about today is the potential for unintended consequences for the retrospective enactment of the ordinance back to October 19th, 2018. Essentially, the way I see it is that you're punishing rule followers in lieu of promoting rule breakers. And what we suggest that is that can set a bad precedent, can inhibit businesses from engaging in the cannabis business within LA. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McFarland.
Good morning. My name is Patrick McFarland. I'm here with Crystal Stairs and the Early Childhood Alliance. I'm here to support City Council's efforts to create a dedicated funding source to support children and youth in the City of Los Angeles. As Council explores budget policy, we hope that the funds are sizable, secure, and sustainable. The City serves children through various programs, but as cost of living continues to rise, now is the time for additional investment to ensure that families have the resources to succeed in Los Angeles. Funding a data report could assess the needs of our children and youth, and working with on-the-ground institutions and nonprofits could enhance service delivery to best serve our children. In closing, we ask that the City prioritize funding for programs and services that support early childhood and youth well-being, and we look forward to working with you on this front. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, as Tomara comes up, let's give William Colvin, Yelena Kachko, or Kachko. Yes.
Hi, my name is Tomer Graciani. I'm an applicant for Phase 2, and we have a social equity member with 33.3% equity. I can tell you that trying to raise funds to get this operation, we're getting raised eyebrows, and investors are kind of shocked that we have to give out 33.3%. I think we can, understand why and can live with that, but the fact that those shares cannot be diluted makes it very, very difficult to operate. As the owner, I'm going to end up having less percentage than the social equity partner. So I just ask that, make it sensible so if you do raise a legitimate round of funding, that everybody gets diluted. Another thing I want to talk about is the existing illegal shops. I think that, trying to do the same thing that the city has been doing for over 10 years to try and shut them down and expecting different results is kind of the definition of insanity. Give them an opportunity to become legal. Find something else, but keeping on wasting our tax money on the same things over and over again is not going to work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please come forward and identify yourself.
Good morning, Yelena Kachko on behalf of UCBA. UCBA supports the city's efforts to preserve viable locations for social equity applicants. However, UCBA also wants to make sure that existing business operations aren't unreasonably restricted. The proposed amendment, which constitutes an absolute prohibition on relocation, would be an unreasonable restriction. That would not allow businesses to relocate as a result of unforeseen circumstances that may leave a business with no option but to relocate. We believe that both objectives can be fulfilled by allowing DCR the discretion to evaluate requests that are submitted after the October 19th request deadline and determine whether there is a financial hardship, a lease expiration, or other commercially reasonable reason to approve relocation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that I have not called? Well,
My name's William Colvin.
Other than you, Mr. Colvin. Anyone else? then the floor is yours, and this is the, we're going to be ending public comment. Yes. No, go ahead.
Okay. My name is William Cole for Hollywood List Tequilas. I am here to address the urgency clause for number 1 on the agenda. This is a government code-based objection to the characterization of an interim emergency ordinance. The people object to the sufficiency of the urgency clause and object that this interim ordinance actually has the same force and effect as a permanent ordinance. The ordinance concerning priority of Proposition D compliant dispensaries proposed to Section 45.197.2 subsection C is not an interim ordinance as described in Government Code Section 65858. It concerns the permanent business location of an existing medical marijuana dispensary and is therefore not just an interim matter. Further, this proposed interim ordinance does not contain any legislative findings that there is current and immediate threat to the public health, safety, and/or welfare, that the approval of additional subdivisions, use permits, variances, building permits, and any other applicable entitlement for use which is required in order to comply with the zoning ordinance would result in a threat to public health, safety, or welfare as required by the Government Code, Section 65858, subsection C.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So, I had closed general public comment before you got in here, Mr. Herman, so the public comment, Mr. City Attorney, is closed. Did you hear what I just said? It's closed. Now, Mr. Herman, you're disrupting this meeting, and you're going to be removed as quickly as you ran in here. So, sergeants, please show him the door. Okay, now, Ms. Packard, I want to kick it back to you. Maybe you can respond to some of the concerns that came up, and then I believe Mr. Harris Dawson wants to ask a question or two or make a statement. So, back to you.
Thank you. I want to respond specifically to the issue at hand with existing medical marijuana dispensaries and their requests to relocate. We understand that the existing medical marijuana dispensaries, first and foremost, have first movers advantage in this priority processing that we've created. We want to be able to balance the need for a place for bona fide business reasons to be accepted for these businesses to move, and also understanding that every single time a existing medical marijuana dispensary moves, it resets the chessboard for this licensing process that many social equity program participants or potential social equity program participants may need to have some stability on here very soon. Another point that I want to address that I think was brought up by one of the stakeholders is that, again, at the end of the year, the state licensing agencies are going to stop allowing for state temporary licenses to be issued. What this means is that if we can't come to a quick resolution to at least allow the businesses with some bona fide reason to be able to move, because of the state process, these businesses will have to submit new applications at the state level after the first, and they may not be able to move at all anyway, having to submit entire new annual state licenses at the time. When we originally made the request, we understood these considerations and suggested that the department be given the discretion to consider relocation requests up until the first of the year, because the state process would be transitioned at this point, but still recommend to the Rules Committee and City Council that we create a process that draws a hard line, but still gives
Hold
discretion.
on for a second. Mr. Spindler, would you please, remove Mr. Spindler. Now, Mr. Spindler, you're disrupting this meeting.
And just in case the mics didn't pick it up, I was able to hear it. There was constant noise. His cell phone, I think, was on like face chat or something.
Mr. Spindler, you're disrupting this meeting, and you're going to be removed from these premises.
I can tell you, I was having trouble concentrating on the speaker. I am sure the people in the audience who were sitting near him were unable to follow what was going on.
Would you remove him? Would you remove him, Sergeant? No, just, this is a very important issue. This may be a joke to you, but it's not a joke to a lot of the people that are here. Mr. City Attorney, he is continuing to disrupt this meeting.
He's shouting all the way out, as
Yes,
usual,
he is.
preventing us from continuing our business. He's
Just
still
have
shouting.
him removed. Have him removed. Just, Mr. Spindler, you are being removed. You are removed. I'm so sorry, Ms. Packard.
Thank you, Council President. We want to be able to establish a process that allows the department to consider bona fide business reasons why existing medical marijuana dispensaries may need to move. I want to be very transparent in saying that I'd like to set the chessboard for this process as new businesses are coming on board, and with businesses moving around all of the time for no reason, it complicates things, and so we'd like to be able to move forward with a path for consideration to allow this to be resolved quickly and fairly, both for existing businesses and for the social equity program. We believe if we're given the discretion to have some consideration over these matters, we can move this process forward.
Mr. Harris-Dawson, did you want to chime in on it?
Thank you so much. I think, Ms. Packer, you covered most of the issues. Just so I'm clear on the understanding, up until this point, before this policy that we're considering today, if someone wanted to move, they didn't have to establish a bona fide business reasons, like many of the reasons people who gave testimony talked about this morning.
No. The process that we had implemented allowed businesses to relocate as long as they submitted a request and as long as the location that they were moving to complied with our location restriction ordinance. We did not have a standard in place for bona fide business reasons.
So even if a business was in a location that was perfectly legal, that they owned, that there was no problem with, if they submitted an application to you to move in the middle of a commercial center, that would just fly through?
Correct.
And so what we have before us today allows there to be some discretion and to take a look at those things.
Absolutely.
Including most of the things that people brought up today, like violating the distancing law that we just passed. If in their old location, in that situation, they might move, they would be able to move at the discretion of DCR.
Correct. And again, we do want to note that there is going to be an abbreviated time period even for these businesses to be able to do this because of the framework that the state has set up. If they do not submit their relocation requests, get approval at that location before what could be the second week of December, they are not going to be allowed by the state to move forward with the relocation request.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I want to ask for an amendment on this, on item number 1, that we request the city attorney to revise the draft ordinance amending section 45.19.7.2 of Article 5.1 of Chapter 4 of the Los Angeles Municipal Code to provide the following. If an EMMD submits a request to relocate on or after October 19th, 2018, DCR may approve the request after it receives a letter of acknowledgement from the impacted council office by November 26th of 2018.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Do you have any other questions or concerns?
That's it.
Okay, Ms. Packard, or to any of our other panelists, is there anything that you want to add before we take action?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so this is what my recommendation would be, that on item 1, we adopt the city attorney report and the draft ordinances as amended. We adopt the Department of Cannabis Regulation report on social equity fee deferral program as amended, and set a dollar amount at $250,000. note and file all other Department of Cannabis regulation reports that are on file. On item 2, we'll adopt the CLA-CAO report on illegal enforcement and instruct the CLA and CAO to report back on illegal enforcement budget needs. And on 3, and we'll adopt recommendation 3 of the CLA-CAO report on the cannabis budget policy and instruct the CLA to report back with an analysis of youth department development funding in the city, including where gaps exist in the current funding. So, and then I believe we've given you that, or we'll give you that in writing. So, with that said, that's the order of this committee. And Mr. Clerk, is there any additional work before this body?
No, sir, that clears the desk.
Okay, then this committee is adjourned. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming, and good morning to you all.